Mankind has been telling stories ever since we first learned to communicate. We shared gripping tales with one another about everything from high adventure and deep tragedy to a hilarious encounter we had at the store the other day. But up until my generation, we always heard stories one way, passively. We were very much observers when it came to narrative, but then came the advent of video games. This medium is special in the sense that a book is a finished work, a painting or a movie is a finished work, but without someone to experience it, a video game is nothing by itself. The player uses the tools given to them in the worlds the designers have crafted to shape a wholly unique experience for themselves, making them just as much artists and creators as the people who made the game itself. Now, why does this relate to Valiant Hearts? Because no matter what our perspective, some things are universal. We all understand the implications of armed conflict, and even if you don't, when as an individual you are made to fight in the events of the First World War, chances are it's going to affect you on a personal level. This was one of the darkest periods in human history, and Valiant Hearts doesn't shy away from any of it. You experience firsthand being led from your family, your home, and everything you knew and loved into events that surround you in the tragedies of war. POW imprisonment, the staggering number of people who died in the trenches, and the absolute horror of seeing your fellow soldiers succumb to chemical warfare are just the tip of the iceberg. In the middle of battle, you naturally don't give much thought to what the future holds, but when you're seeing the aftermath of it all as a medic, that's when it really hits you. Hearing the anguished cries of the wounded all around you, walking through a war-torn city of innocent people grieving in the streets as their homes burn and toxic gas fills the air. To say that these experiences are heavy is a gross understatement. I almost cried during Chapter 2, and believe me, it's very easy to get depressed from playing this game for long periods of time. But that's the point. These things actually happened. There's no denying that. Obviously, the boss fights and car chases were probably dramatized, but one, it's all in service of making the game more fun to play, and two, it's grounded in such a harsh reality that you don't have time to dwell on thoughts like that. There were many people who had stories similar to those of Carl, Emil, and Anna, and the emotions that those stories inspire, from the overwhelming desire to do any good you can to balance out the suffering around you, to the brief glimmers of hope given by letters from home and allies by your side, to the dogged determination to simply survive another day. This is an experience that will stick with you for a long time. Participating in these events yourself is one thing, but there are tons of in-game documents going into even more detail of exactly what happened during these years. Even the optional collectibles scattered around the stages serve more of a purpose than just unlocking achievements. Each one comes with its own description, opening even more insight into this world, our world, and what it was like to be a part of it during this point in history. This is a tremendous effort on Ubisoft's part, putting an unbelievable amount of care into not just telling us what World War I was like, but also making us feel like we were actually there. And you know what? All that effort would have been worthless if it weren't such a great game to boot. Valiant Hearts is a 2D puzzle exploration game, kinda like a point-and-click that's been optimized for consoles. You'll use a very simple set of basic actions to do a multitude of increasingly complex things, and it always feels new and interesting every time. Granted, none of these puzzles are terribly hard to figure out, but I'm pretty sure that was for the purpose of keeping you in the moment, fighting off invasive thoughts like, what the hell do I do now? The trick, and I have to applaud them for this, is that every single action and puzzle tells an entire story without a single word. Do you know how they had to load an artillery cannon back in these days? You will by the end of this game. Do you know how they had to treat things such as bullet wounds and infections? You will by the end of this game. And here's something else you'll pick up as you chase the Germans all over Europe: the names and locations of several major cities in these countries, as well as both the events that happened there and when they took place. And you thought you were just solving puzzles. The narrator almost seems like a formality at this point. So much of the story, the world, and the personality of the characters is told through what comes naturally during gameplay that he almost seems out of place when he's not using his time to tell me facts and statistics I didn't already know. It's like, dude, really? I just had to saw off a man's hand because proper methods of disinfecting wounds did not exist during this era. I don't need you to tell me how to feel about that. You know what I will accept telling me that, though? Listen to this music. I make no exaggeration when I say that this is one of the definitive video game soundtracks. The score is just flawless. Every piece perfectly encapsulates the tone and setting that Valiant Hearts is going for, and just listening to it alone can put you right back in the game. And do I really have to talk about the graphics? It's the UbiArt framework, people. The same engine that brought us Rayman Origins and Child of Light. Of course it allows the creators to do some amazing things. What's more impressive to me is how they keep using this framework in new and strikingly ambitious ways, setting an even higher and higher standard with every game, and Valiant Hearts is no exception. The aesthetic is one of both bright color and gritty darkness, elements that this community often likes to pit against each other. However, bringing these two things together is what gives this game both a stylized and expressive personality all its own, displaying these events in its own unique way. You may think seeing war through the eyes of a cartoon would dampen the impact, but no, the artist knew when to get dark, and there is a mastery of color usage on display here that you just simply do not see in many other works, period, let alone in games. It's because of all this working in tandem that I am simply blown away by Valiant Hearts. This is not just a great puzzle game. This is not just an interactive slice of history and an example of a game going above and beyond just simple entertainment into being an intuitive teaching tool. And this is not just a passion project made by people who clearly had a deep respect for their subject matter and the tone at which it needed to be presented, both in terms of how you perceive it and interact with it. It's all those things and more. It's something that simply needs to be played because the level at which it succeeds in everything it set out to do is damn near flawless. Go buy this game.